already. It's really nice to know who's in the room. So we've done who are you, who are we? As I said, we are in the same house, we live together, but we also run Organised Fun together. So Jamie, do you want to tell people who you are?
Yeah, I'm Jamie. I help and support the work that we do through Organised Fun by making sure that the tech stuff works, and that we have do the accounts and make sure all that stuff works, and just all the organizational kind of stuff. It's pretty varied. And I'm also a full-time student, so I study philosophy and communication and society at Nottingham Trent. Go Trent. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm spending my days doing.
So Jamie does the organised bit of Organised Fun, and I do the fun stuff.
I'd like to say, isn't it?
Although he does think spreadsheets are fun, so yeah. So
without a good spreadsheet.
So I'm Rosie Hunnam. I run Organised Fun with Jamie. I do more of the consultancy side, so I am our biggest fan of student opportunities. It's what I talk about pretty much all the time. Poor Jamie. He likes it too, but not as much as me. And I've been involved in student opportunities for the whole of my working career. So I graduated 10 years ago from Swansea University. So shout out to any Welsh unions in the room. Diolch yn fawr for attending. And since then, I've worked for the National Union of Students. I worked for Swansea University Students' Union, and then for the past year or so have been running Organised Fun with Jamie. We started Organised Fun, so you'll see on screen there's kind of two bits to what we do. So we do community building stuff and we do consultancy. And we started off Organised Fun thinking that we'd do just consultancy. So what that actually is working predominantly with students' unions, but also with universities and colleges directly, to help them to do student opportunities really well. So that's clubs, societies, student volunteering, student fundraising, student media. So all the stuff that we've been talking about all week, we love that. And that's what we want to help be really impactful and meaningful to students across the UK. And that's where we started. And even a few months in, we were working with some students. We were doing a focus group at Manchester Met, actually. And so I think Rob's here from Man Met. And we were talking to some students in a focus group about student opportunities there. And one of the students said, we just want people across the UK to know what we do and to know that what we do in student opportunities is really important. And we want people to know that. And then Jamie and I came away from that focus group thinking, okay, maybe it's a bit bigger than just doing consultancy. And that's where the community building part of what we do is. So you're in one of those now. So the Student Opportunities Festival is a free to access UK-wide event for anybody involved in student opportunities, whether they're a student leader, a volunteer, a committee member, or a student union staff member, or a university or college staff member, or a sabbatical officer with an interest in student opportunities. And then there's lots of people sort of outside of the student movement in the voluntary sector, the charity sector and government that care about this and perhaps don't care about it as much as we'd like them to. And they're part of our community too. So we want to provide stuff that's UK-wide, that helps bring people together, that helps to make student opportunities as impactful as it can be. So that's us, that's what we do. I'm really glad that you've been participating in the festival, seen loads of really lovely stuff on social media about the sessions you've been to and what you've been learning. So that makes it all worthwhile, makes it worthwhile that Jamie and I have been doing this all week, and the organising committee have been really busy for the past few weeks. So super glad you're all enjoying it. Our contact details are on screen. So we have a website, we have all of the social media, not TikTok. We're not on TikTok because I think that would mean we'd spend way too much time on it, but you can find us on social media, and we've got email, so you can email us if you've got any questions or you want to work with us in the future, or if you've got any ideas for how you think we can do stuff to bring this community together. So we're going to talk about events, really. That's our kind of bit about us over and done with. Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say, yeah, this session, we all know that events that we've been doing can't carry on the way that they were, and that we want to help share some of the things that we've seen work and some of the stuff that we've built up from experience of how online events don't have to be dry and boring, and it's sometimes hard to get the atmosphere across through a screen. So obviously this is one of the things that we've helped to coordinate, the Student Opportunities Festival, a big like multi-day event with loads of people involved. We've had about 1,300 people register their interest to attend this festival and be here. We've had volunteers to speak, and like we've produced 80 hours worth of content. There's about 120 different speakers and presenters. There's just stacks of stuff going on with this one. And then we also made the NSVAs, which is the National Societies and Volunteering Awards. And originally, so we started this project before COVID took effect. So we were planning on creating an in-person celebration of all the wonderful stuff that societies and volunteers across the UK do. We were going to bring everybody together in one location and do all that like normal stuff, and that wasn't going to work. So very quickly, we had to change that plan, and we created we live streamed the event, and again that was successful. It was a brand new thing as well, so the societies, the National Societies and Volunteering Awards hadn't existed like this before, and the two bits, societies and volunteering, hadn't come together before, so it was sort of brand new in that sense. And we managed to get 4,000 viewers or 4,000 views on our recording that we live streamed through to Facebook, and we had plenty of engagement. And during the stream, we had lots of chat and lots of like looping back, which was really nice. Nominations from loads of different institutions, 44 different institutions across the UK. So again, that was really good. And then we've also, in terms of online events, we've done some online training that's like a paid for service. So both of these were free to attend, like free for anybody in the sector to come and be part of. And then Rosie, you've done some
more sort of consultancy style training stuff that people pay us to access. So our business model is that paid for consultancy stuff and training allows us to do this kind of thing, the free stuff. And so these are the two like big events that you'll have hopefully seen and been able to be part of. And we've had to do, the NSVAs, as Jamie said, we converted to an online thing, and the Student Opportunities Festival was designed from the start as an online thing. Obviously, they're not perfect. There's always going to be stuff that we can improve on, and we'll be sending you feedback next week. So please tell us how you'd like us to improve on this event if we do it again. But we've got some like principles that we've been working around and that we've been learning through doing these two really big online events that we want to share with you. And then, as promised, we literally do have 101 online event ideas. I manually counted them earlier. So we're going to go through those, not 101 in detail because we'll be here until 7 o'clock, but we'll give you a taste of them, and then we'll share these slides afterwards too. And there's obviously the recording, so you can have a look at those and hopefully do some of them. It's worth saying as well, we will have time for questions at the end, but we will do them at the end because it's nicer. It means we can get rid of the slides and we can kind of look at you properly at the end. So yeah, let's get into some principles. We can't do this anymore. Freshers isn't going to look like that. Welcome isn't going to look like that. I was just in a session with Laura and Dennis from the National Student Fundraising Association, and there was a conversation in there about, should we even call it freshers anymore? Because it's not just for them, it's welcome, or it's welcome back. But when I Googled Freshers Week, this is what came up. And I know that isn't actually indicative of a lot of the stuff that you do, but it is indicative of what a lot of students expect. And this year, because of COVID and the global pandemic, that's not going to happen. And neither is this. So a lot of you will be kind of worrying and thinking about, Oh, well, the Freshers' Fair, the Welcome Fair. In Southampton, they call it a bun fight. So if anyone in Southampton's here, you want to explain why it's called a bun fight, I've never known. Someone said, yes, I think Ella is from Southampton. Oh, no idea. Okay. We'll look that up. I love a bit of history of Students' Union weirdness. But anyway, Freshers' Fairs like this aren't going to happen. And if they are happening at all, they're either going to be an online activity, or they're going to be like massively socially distanced, and it's not going to have that same buzz. But that doesn't mean that student opportunities activities can't happen this year. Like, absolutely not. I am adamant that student opportunities is going to keep going and keep being strong and important and a really big part of student life. But events are part of that, and creating activities for students to meet each other and to make friends and to learn stuff is going to be really important. But thinking about that innovatively and starting from scratch a little bit with some of your activities is going to be how we approach this session. That's me with 101 ideas. That's what I look like normally. No, we really do have 101 event ideas for you. But first, we're going to talk you through some of these principles for what we think makes a really good, engaging online activity. So we've broken this down to try and make it a little bit easier for you to remember, because we know that you've had loads of stuff that's been talked about in the festival, loads of different ideas. If you remember nothing else from this session, remember this when you plan your next activity. I was going to sort of make it into a new acronym of PAF, but thought it sounds a bit weird, and there's already enough acronyms in student opportunities.
This is your path to a great online event. That'd be awful, Rosie. Don't do that.
So we won't do that, but we'll just remember the 3 words instead. So purpose, audience, and format. So in terms of a purpose, not every event or activity is trying to do the same thing. Loads of you in the room are student fundraisers, and lots of what you do will be a fundraising activity. You'll be trying to raise money through what you do. Or if you're not trying to raise money, you might be wanting to socialise and say thank you to the volunteers that have been involved in your last fundraiser, for example. Sometimes the purpose might be to get people to know about your student activity for the first time. They might never have been to anything like this before. So it's for newbies.
I think it's important to think about when you're taking stuff that you might have been doing before and then trying to make it online. You don't need to just do the same thing but online, because there's the reason you were doing the thing before. Find out what that is, and then think about, can we achieve this same goal? We've got the same purpose here, but maybe there's a new way to arrive at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of when we talk about format. A golden rule to remember on format is that when you're doing something online, you're trying to recreate a relationship, not a format necessarily. So in a night, like if anyone attended the virtual nightclub experience last night, it's not a nightclub. We call it that, so because you kind of know a bit what to expect, but it's very clear it's not a nightclub. It's not kind of dark. There's not really loud music. The music is as loud as your laptop or home speakers will let it be. Very unlikely to have like smoke machines, wasn't very sweaty. All of those things, you can't recreate that perfectly at home or in a space that you're using in your students' union. So you're thinking about the relationships that you're trying to recreate through that activity, rather than format, like let's try and make this format exactly the same as it would be if we were all together in a room. And then that links also to your audience. So in terms of audience, we've said before, like this, you don't know who they are right now. When you're planning, you need to be thinking about that. And rather than when you're planning, and I'm sure in the next few weeks, you'll be starting to think about what you're going to be doing in September and October as that welcome or welcome back. I encourage you not to just say our audience is students, because the student body, no matter what university or college you're at, is vast. Every single student is a different individual. They all have completely different experiences up to the point of attending your event. They all have different needs. They all have, in terms of like access needs and ways to make them feel safe and comfortable. But they also have really different expectations. So when you're thinking about audience, if you are aiming at a student demographic for your activity, break it down and try and think about, okay, so for this we're wanting people to attend who are new, and we want them to come back, and we want them to do something again. What type of student do we want to engage in this activity? Because what sort of student do we want to keep coming back to our events, for example? Or if it's if it's like you're thinking specifically that the purpose of your activity is to raise money, who's your audience that has money to give, and why do they care about the thing that you're raising money for? The more you break it down, the easier it will be to design something that's good for them. So the techie stuff, over to Jamie, because he's our tech person at Organised Fun HQ.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time people can get a bit panicky or sometimes a bit worried about this, and I've heard lots of people joining sessions who are going to speak during this week going, oh, I'm not very techie, I can't, I might do this wrong. And I think the first thing is it's not quite as scary as you might think. You can get up and live. You can start an Instagram live within seconds on your phone, but it still might not deliver your purpose, right? But there's ways that you can get up and running really, really quickly and for free. You don't need to spend any money necessarily to do this. Most people have that technology already, so that's all good. The two events that we were talking about, so this festival and our NSVAs, the awards ceremony, they were quite different, and we've chosen different routes of how we were going to do that. So the NSVAs is a really highly curated, high quality kind of experience, and it's one instance. It's just all happens in that one broadcast. So we could have done that with a phone, but we didn't. What we chose to do was make sure we've got some good quality microphone audio quality, make sure we've got good lighting, curate a little set, we made some videos that we could then use within our live stream, so they were pre-recorded, and you can start mixing these live elements and recorded elements by using software. The software we used is OBS Streamlabs. There is which is an open broadcasting software. Streamlabs is just a sort of lighter weight, nicer user interface way of doing this. And then that helps you to be able to swap between scenes, so you can integrate this pre-recorded content or other images, other video content. You can create overlays over the top of the frame that you're filming. And again, all of this starts to sound really complicated or a bit intimidating, but actually it's not that bad, especially once you start going to have a look at it. You can create your frames on a free piece of software like Canva, and you can create different elements from different places. You don't have to necessarily spend any money. OBS is free to use, and you'll find if you speak around within your student community, there are people who know how to do this already. Lots of the media groups, certainly if you have a television station at your uni, they are likely to know about this live streaming element already. So if you want to work together to make something happen, that's a good place to start. Another really great place to look for this is your gaming societies. Gamers have been live streaming content and sharing peer-to-peer content in real time for ages. This is something that they do really, really well. There's the Twitch community is very welcoming. So if you've got some questions about bit rates and how to get the best audio quality and all these kind of technical questions, the chances are there's YouTube videos of gamers telling you how to do this stuff already. There's forums on Reddit that tell you how to do this stuff already. So it doesn't have to be quite so scary. And then the other thing, this one, not so curated. We needed some consistency, and we had to think about our speakers' experience as well as our attendees' experience, because we had so many different people across so many different locations. We had to think about how we're going to make sure that all of these people know what to expect when they need to be comfortable to sit here and give their information and share their content with our audiences. So we made sure that everybody well ahead of time had good joining instructions. That's the thing, really. With both of these, there's preparation involved. You need to know what you're doing ahead of time. If you're going to do something that stands out, you can press live and go straight away. But if you think about it beforehand, you can make sure your audience are actually there and are engaged, and that the people who are presenting, your speakers, know what's going to be happening. In all of our calls throughout the festival, we've had call hosts there, which are people from each of the student groups that have helped to coordinate all this content, and then they're on hand. So big shout out to all of them. They've done a really great job.
Shout out if you're a call host.
And they've helped to make sure that all our speakers are comfortable, and they moderate chat and make sure that the questions get asked, and they've been there to make sure that all of the speakers have the right links and know what's going to happen. So yeah, again, that's been really good. And then a bit of research into different platforms. So I think we talk about this a bit later on, but if you're reaching out to a new audience, use the platform that they already use. That don't try and force them to go somewhere new. Like if your audience, or if you already have a Facebook group as a society and you use it quite a lot, that's where you should do your live. There's no point trying to do it somewhere else.
Yeah, because otherwise you've got to bring the audience over to a new platform and do a new event, and it's too much newness for people.
So yeah, I just want I didn't want to go into too much detail about specifics of like, oh yeah, well, we use this camera and that or whatever, because I don't think it matters so much. I think it matters the principles of, let's make sure that you know what you're going to be doing before it starts, and that, like, linking that back to path. Think about your purpose and think about your audience. Who are you trying to reach, and where are they already? And yeah,
and do a practice run with friends and family. All of our close friends and family got to see a nearly full version of the National Societies and Volunteering Awards before we did it live for real for everybody else, and that ironed out so many technical difficulties where the sound wasn't balancing right, or the light was shining weirdly in my face, or the fact that I kept like chewing my nail in between edits. So
yeah, I mean, so we're not, you might be fine talking to a room full of people, but presenting to a camera or presenting as though people are there and they're not feels really weird and different, because you don't get any feedback from the people that are engaging other than in the chat. So again, but make sure that you're keeping on top of that. In the NSBAs, we were able to invite people to chat, give them a topic to talk about, and then we can reply to that, and then you get this sort of two-way interaction, and that is way more engaging than just listening to somebody, and it sort of stops that fatigue of a live stream where you kind of tune out because there's loads of other stuff going on in your own home.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of an overview of some more technical stuff. The next bit that we wanted to talk through was being a good host, and a lot of this really helps with making your events and activities more inclusive. So think about if you're having like a house party or you're having people over for dinner, you would make sure that they didn't have any specific dietary requirements. You would tell them what time to turn up. You would maybe tell them a dress code if that was appropriate, or what fancy dress they need to be coming in. You give them an idea of like what was going to be happening, and not having an online activity should be no different to that. So it really helps a lot of people who are feeling nervous or have particular like needs from an event if you give them as much clear information before as possible. So you'll notice in every email from the Student Opportunities Festival, we've told you in every single email how you can join the sessions. And that's not because we couldn't be bothered to delete it. That's been done on purpose, so that if it's the first time you've read one of our emails or the fifth time you've read one of our emails, you know what you're doing and how to join. And I hope that it's been a pretty easy joining experience coming into all of our sessions. But being a good host is also then about stewarding when you're at that event. So imagine when you get onto a plane and they tell you to have a good flight and welcome to our airline and all that nice stuff, and they make you feel really welcome. But they also tell you all the safety stuff and all of the stuff that are like the rules, and that's your role too. And we encourage you to put that in different formats. So not just having it on screen, but also repeating it and saying it. So at all of our sessions, we'll have told you verbally, you will have seen on screen, and we'll have written down that you should engage in the chat, and this is sessions being recorded, and this is roughly how long it will be, and that kind of stuff. And that's all your job as the host or the steward of that session. And then we've got a couple more of these, and then we're going to go into those 101 ideas. So the next thing, this really links back to your purpose and your audience and your format. So this is thinking about the purpose of your event and making sure it's authentic to the type of activity you're trying to create, the type of environment that you're trying to make people think about. And how do you, I think lots of students who are doing their learning online from September and October, they'll be getting kind of Zoom fatigue or Teams fatigue, whatever you've been using. How do you make them kind of know that this is a different type of environment, that it's maybe a bit more fun, a bit more relaxed? Some of that is in your joining instructions and how they know how to get involved. And some of that is in the kind of atmosphere that you're trying to create through that event. And then finally, we couldn't talk about events and activities without talking about risk management. So I'm sure many of you have been involved in this before. For anybody who's a new committee member, you will need to get used to doing risk management. They can be a bit boring and dry, but actually they're really, really important to planning a good activity, and they're a hallmark of a good event. Doing a proper risk assessment and thinking about the risks and the problems that might occur through your event or activity will mean that you're planning for those eventualities. So the reason we had call hosts in all of the Student Opportunities Festival sessions, we've taken a big risk in this session because we have call hosts, because Jamie and I are in the same building, and if our Wi-Fi goes, it goes and we're gone. Whereas if we've got call hosts, at least we have somebody in that session who can carry on keeping everybody engaged. They can carry on doing the kind of moderation stuff that needs to happen. Because it's been going so well all week, this is why we took the risk to not have somebody external, but that was a risk, and it was a calculated one. So in doing risk management, you're thinking about all the things that could possibly go wrong or be a bit difficult, and then trying to make a plan for if that doesn't happen. And then making sure that whoever is helping you in that stewarding and hosting has all the correct information to make sure that if you're not there to deal with it, or if something's happening that's out of your control, they know what to do. So that you're not going to have so many problems like fire or slips, trips and falls that you'd have on an in-person event, but you might have different risks, like what happens if someone comes in and starts spamming, like on Monday. So on the event description for the Student Opportunities Festival, we had a spammer that was just posting wrong links, trying to get people to go and sign up to something.
Links to a stream where you had to sign up to do it, which no doubt was then some sort of malware or something. Yeah, so yeah. That was no good. And I think with the risk assessments, this stuff is sort of similar to if you do an external, an excursion. You take a student group somewhere else, you can prepare for it, you can research about it, but then when you get there, the reality might be different to what you've thought it was going to be. So then you have to be adaptive and you have to respond to the situation. So lots of this technology or ways of using this technology is brand new to most people, so you might not get it bang on every time, but just be adaptable to the situation you find yourself in.
And if you want to use some new technology that maybe if you're a student group and your students' union isn't used to that technology, they might be a bit worried about that to start with. But if you can produce a solid risk plan, and if you've looked through, for example, how it's a safe platform to be using and how you're going to kick people out if they start being abusive and all of that stuff, your SU is more likely to go, yeah, okay, you can use that and we'll support you, and maybe they'll pay for it or they'll be able to help you do the event. So just something to think through in terms of new technology. So there are principles of what we think makes a really good, engaging, organised, fun activity. And now we literally have 101 ideas for you. This morning when we were finishing off the session, we had 96, and we scraped about, we had 96. We didn't scrape the barrel on event ideas, but we were brainstorming, trying to find the last few to make sure that this session wasn't a lie.
I think we didn't give ourselves enough time to do all 101. I don't think we have virtual festival as an idea even.
Oh yeah, we don't.
There's an extra one for you.
Yeah, 102. So we've got 101 ideas. We've split them down into themes to try and make it a bit easier to digest. What we're not going to do is go through every single one and how you will do it, because as we said earlier, that would take all evening. But we think most of them are pretty self-explanatory. So we'll go through them, and then when we get to the Q&A bit in a minute, if you've got any questions about like, oh, you put that on a slide, how do you imagine that happening, then let us know. So the first theme is wellbeing events. So you can see on here, there's lots of garden stuff. That might be because like I'm quite into gardening at the moment.
We have an allotment, so
the allotment's been neglected this week because of the festival. I hope the weeds aren't like waist high. So there's lots of kind of well-being activities on here that would hopefully be quite positive activities. Foodie stuff. We, in the Hype Collective session earlier in the week, they were talking about how local fast food places are like going to probably looking to sponsor activities. I really like the idea of Ready Steady Cook. I came up with that earlier today and I was really excited about it. But wouldn't it be cool if you got like your local co-op to produce little food bags for a couple of people or 3 or 4 people, and then you deliver it to their houses, and then they've got the same ingredients, and then live on screen you watch them make something with it, and then your audience gets to vote on which is their favourite meal. Amazing, just like the TV show.
And again, that's dead easy. You could do all of that through Instagram. You could have 2 different Instagram accounts that join each other remotely, so it splits the screen, then you can see what those guys are cooking, and then through the stories, interactive, just voting on who's the winner. Really straightforward, sort of tech wise.
Yeah. And anything that's like currently a TV show could potentially be something that you do as an online activity. Music stuff, I've been really enjoying, there's been some listening parties on Twitter where they say, okay, at 9 p.m. we're all going to play, it was a Maccabees album that I listened to not that long ago, an old Maccabees album, and we're going to all listen to that at the same time, and then we're going to live tweet our reaction to each song, and then the band sometimes join in as well. And doing stuff like that would be really cool, particularly if you've got like any like bands or choirs or whatever that's linked to your university or college, and you could do that at the same time. I think that would be really interesting. Karaoke is another cool one. Lucky Voice, which are like the cool karaoke brand, deliver like a karaoke kit. It's about 60 quid. You can get different coloured microphones, which I was very excited about. There's a gold one, which I think would be just very good for the photos. But you could have one of those as a students' union that you then hire out to your different student groups or lend to your student groups to do at-home karaoke sessions, and then just have the joys of karaoke, but from home. And the poor neighbours would have to put up with that.
I've spotted we've got lessons on here twice. So I'm going to make one of those music lessons, like an instrument, and the other is singing lessons. There you
go. Art stuff, there's loads of like crafty art stuff. I know a couple of arts unions have been doing like life drawing classes. There's loads of different stuff. There's Pictionary, and then there's a website called Scribble.io that we did as a trustee social the other day, which was pretty fun. Yarn bombing, if you haven't heard of that, I love this idea where if you get loads of people to make stuff like knitted or crocheted, and then you all individually go and like say, okay, on the university quad in the centre of campus, we're all going to go and like put our creations up in the same place, and then everybody comes together when they've finished at a time that suits them, no problem with social distancing, and then you can see like this piece of art grow as everybody makes their individual bits. Okay, pottery. You can get pottery kits delivered to your house. How cool is that?
And then calling out Loughborough Rag for a lip sync battle, which
Oh
I
my
think is a
God.
great idea.
If Nottingham Carnival Rag and Loughborough Rag had a lip sync battle because of this conference, I would be so happy. Please make that happen. It would be really funny. I'm happy to judge if you do that. Boozy stuff, we've kept that minimal because I think, well, there's a growing trend that students are less bothered about drinking, and I think people know how to do boozy stuff, so less excited about that. But there's some kind of interesting things you can do. Cocktail making, if anybody is involved in a Harry Potter or Hogwarts society, when I worked at Swansea SU, we did a potions masterclass, which was a cocktail class, but we called it potions, and it was one of the most popular socials that the society did all year. Great fun. Loads of educational stuff for your academic clubs and societies, and for people who are more interested in this type of stuff. I don't think any of those need any explanation.
Yeah, some of these are a mix of like one-off events, and some of them are things that you're going to continually come back to, and it's something to maybe center, because you can't necessarily have those like dead regular meetups that you would have done. So this is something to center your conversations around. So stuff like that Duolingo challenge or whatever, you can actually track each other's progress by using those kind of apps, and it's a continual thing that keeps you in touch with people with minimal effort, other than you've got something to talk about.
Yeah, and I encourage you to have some of that stuff that's consistent, that goes throughout the term or throughout the year, and some stuff that's like one-off. So if people want to get involved every week or every few weeks, there's that consistent thing that keeps going, and then there's the one-offs that are a bit more kind of special. Maybe they take a bit more organisation. Sporty stuff. So sport as we know it in universities and colleges is not going to look the same until at least January. So any team sports and stuff are still not on the cards. Some individual sports are going to happen, but there's loads of stuff you can do to keep fit and to keep engaged in the sporting community whilst you can't maybe play as a team. And one of the things that someone in a fundraising session was saying earlier is that if you've got people like your rugby teams, football teams, lacrosse teams that can't play together, get them involved in student fundraising, get them involved in your societies instead. They're still people that like to do stuff. They just can't do the thing that they really want to do right now. So try and use that to the advantage of the wider student community. And then there's 2 pages of this of like for fun and making friends. These are all the kind of like random silly stuff. There's TikTok challenges, board game stuff. We've played Monopoly with Jamie's parents like via Zoom, and that was pretty fun, like early on in lockdown. I like the idea of an afternoon tea and combining that with a foodie one in terms of like a cook along or a baking lesson. So could you get like a local tea room to give you a baking demonstration about how to make some food? So everybody does that together, and then the next day you all sit down and eat it and have an afternoon tea and a chat. So just to make what could be seen as a bit boring as an afternoon tea a little bit more engaging, and that's 2 events all in one theme.
And even if you don't make the whole thing, movement is possible now in a way that it wasn't. So without breaking social distancing, you can gather a thing and deliver it to a certain place, or let people collect them. So you could have all the afternoon teas ready on little stands and or like cutesy and stuff, and people can come and collect it, take it back to wherever they're going to enjoy that, and still everybody's got the same, or similar experience without all those individuals having to go to the shop and go and get all those things. Somebody could do that centrally.
Yeah, and then like if you did that as a fundraiser, you can make the tickets £10 and then make sure that your ingredients cost £6 and then make £4 for your charity. There's another page of these like for fun and making friends stuff, so loads of stuff on there. I like the idea of a treasure hunt, because that's like means you're like getting out, but you can do the online engagement through social media. Like you could get people to tag themselves when they get to certain places, take a photo in a certain place. It's a really good way at the start of term to get people who've moved to a new town or city to get to know like the key places in that town or city. And I've seen people do stuff like where you like hide your like society logo like all around campus, and you've got to find the 10 logos, stuff like that. Like it's not necessarily sitting in your bedroom or living room online, but you're engaging online where you can't be together in the same room.
And just spoken in the comments about the stone caterpillar, so everybody decorates a stone and then build up a caterpillar. And that's reminded me of the rocks things that were done a little while ago through Facebook, and it was mostly aimed at children, but they like decorate a stone and then hide it in places in their local area, and when somebody found it, they'd take a picture and upload it to social media. So again, you could do that kind of thing with your own society logo, or all societies, get everybody involved in this, and then as people are wandering around, they're going to spot little references to stuff that's going on.
Yeah, it's a really good idea. And maybe like that's an interactive way of doing a different way of doing a book club too. So as a society or a RAG or a group, you could buy 10 copies of that book, hide them around campus, and the first 10 people to find it get the book for free. And then if anybody else wants to join in, they can buy it. Another one that I really love the idea of, because I really like MTV Cribs, is to do like your own like committee cribs or something like that, where you can like give people a tour of your student house. I'd really enjoy that. They're all our ideas, so we'll finish off in a second so that we've got some time for questions. So just wanting to kind of like remind you of those principles at the very start, the path. So thinking about your purpose and be really clear about that. And I encourage you not to try and like merge too many things into one. So if it's a fundraising thing, keep that as your primary goal. If it's about meeting people, keep that as your goal. If it's about sharing ideas or learning a skill, tailor to your audience, talk to your audience. So talk to the people who you would love to attend and talk to them about, okay, here's our idea. What would make you buy a ticket, or what would make you show up? And then format. Jamie, you had a point about like this multi-platform thing.
Yeah, I think no matter what your event is, you'll always have to engage across multiple formats. So this is all hosted through Zoom and Zoom webinars, and you still need that website that directs people here. We've sent out emails to people. We've got it across social media, across multiple different accounts, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of them. So you're nearly always going to need to speak to people everywhere to make sure that they know what's going to happen. Because, you know, when people are scrolling, it's fleeting before, you know, right in front of their eyes. And if you're only posting it once in one place, the chances are people aren't going to see it. But when they start seeing something cropping up like across all of their different feeds, it generates a little bit more interest.
Yes.
So yeah,
definitely. Okay, we've got some time for questions. If you get writing those in the Q&A, I know there's a few that have come in already. I'm going to do a quick plug for the next session. So we've pulled together a live example of something that can be done online. So Chris is ex-Student Fundraising Committee, ex-Student TV from York. He now is a magician. So there's evidence that you can do anything from being involved in student opportunities. And directly after this session, Chris is going to be doing a 30-minute virtual mind reading exercise, which I have no idea how that's going to work, but it's an example of stuff that can be done online. Yeah, okay, I'm going to stop the share so we can take some questions.
The first question is just, how do I get a recording at a later date? And what we're doing with all these recordings, we're going to try and gather them all together, and then if you've registered for the festival, we'll send an email out so you'll see exactly where you can get all of that content. And also just keep a lookout on social media. Like I said, we'll share it everywhere. So you shouldn't be hard to find, but I can't afford the bandwidth of trying to upload this stuff right now too, as doing this. So it will be there, but maybe next week.
Online murder mystery sounds cool. How do you think that could work? Well, handily, if you look in the chat, someone's already done one. I started planning one for our friends and family, and I definitely overcomplicated it, so I stopped planning it. I think if there's loads of tutorials about how to do this online, so your best bet is to go on Google. That's such a cop out, isn't it? Like, oh, Google it. But go on Google and have a look. And then what I would do is just like get the different bits of advice and work out what would work for you with the budget you've got and the type of people that you're trying to engage. Yeah, I think if Matthew wants to give any advice about how they did it, like which bits worked on your online murder mystery, that would be really cool.
Yeah, I think you just need to sort of come up with that storyline. You need to know who's going to take part beforehand so that you can assign them their roles and they know how they're going to behave. There's no reason why you have to pretend that you're in a like grand mansion and all of that kind of stuff, the butler and all that kind of thing. The storyline could pivot around somebody dies or gets killed through, on Zoom, and you have to try and work it out. You don't have to pretend that you're somewhere else. And I think that probably will make it more engaging too. But yeah, there's loads of like templates and stuff.
We did one as a promo for the Performing Arts Societies at Swansea when I worked there. And use your drama society if you've got one, or use people who enjoy like putting on a show, because I basically got the drama society in and gave them all really important talking pieces in the murder mystery, and it was amazing. It was way better than like any of us from the Students' Union trying to do those parts. And then we had the musician society like playing in the background and stuff. It was cool. A random question I just want to answer because it's funny. Dan's asked, my predecessor is a massive Ed Sheeran fan. As a thank you to her, would you be able to help us get him on a sing-along or something? I love the fact that you think that we have the power to get Ed Sheeran to do a sing-along. I mean, there's quite a lot of us in this room, so we could all ask. If you email us at info@Organised Fun, we will do our best to help you. But I definitely, if we knew Ed Sheeran, Jamie's daughters would be really happy about that. And unfortunately, we don't.
Yeah, we'd have had him here for this.
Definitely. He'd have been doing a keynote. So we've had another question. We've had quite a few. We'll get through as many as we can, but we need to go and set up the mind reading in a minute. If you wanted to put on a live streamed gig or music performance as a fundraiser, how would you see that working? I don't know if you mean like, how do you see the fundraiser part working, or how do you see the tech working? I can answer the fundraiser part and Jamie can answer the tech.
Well, I think that they might even go hand in hand. There's no reason why, if it's you can do it as a registered ticketed event and then live stream, like I said, depending on where you're going to do that. So yeah, there's a few different ways you could do it. I suppose you could live stream it and let anybody come and join in, and it's not ticketed, and then have a place for people to make donations online. That's probably, you're going to get the biggest audience, I would think, that way round, rather than ticketing it first. And you don't have to worry about trying to make your live stream secure to stop people who haven't got a ticket viewing it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's a few different ways.
What are the best software platforms for hosting these events on? Zoom doesn't seem like it's good enough for hosting some on its own. Okay, so we're using Zoom Webinar, which you have to pay for, and you have to pay for Zoom meetings that are more than 40 minutes as well. But I encourage you to talk to your SU about that if you haven't already, because they will be thinking about this too.
Loads of unis are like really up on Microsoft stuff, so they probably have Teams accounts already. Yeah. If you've got Microsoft Office stuff through your uni already, then using Teams is probably as good a place as anywhere else to have a video call. And yeah, you can set them up. Google Hangouts, which is how the coffee shops are working at the moment because of lockdown, have been made free for anybody. So again, you don't have to spend any money doing it that way around. If it's a smaller group, WhatsApp do have video functions built in. So yeah, you don't have to pay money necessarily. And yeah, again, it sort of depends on if you're trying to have that two-way interaction of being able to talk to each other, or whether it's you're going to stream with comments. And if you're going to stream with comments, then streaming to YouTube or Twitch or Facebook or wherever is probably the better option.
Owine's asked how you use Zoom webinars. It does cost money, Owine. It depends on how many people you want in the room and how long you want it for. It's not complicated. It functions really similarly to Zoom. So yeah, it's not a scary piece of software to use. Just whizzing through, we're going to try and do as many as we can. Mila asks about recommendations for good companies to hire equipment. I don't know any, but I'd encourage you, if you need something, talk to the Students' Union and see if any other groups want that too, because your union will have some grant funding to pay for this kind of thing. Apart from that, I wondered if anybody who's involved in student media has any recommendations for hiring equipment cheaply. I know it exists, but I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head.
And you might be surprised at how much stuff your union already has access to.
Yeah. And then the last question that we'll be able to get through today, because we need to finish up so I can go and chat to Chris before virtual mind reading. We've asked about tips for engaging a large society and committee that are currently spread across the UK, getting them interested initially. So in terms of the committee, we have 26 odd people on the committee for this festival, and we've been using Slack to communicate with each other. And we have loads of different Slack channels, so content, tech, comms, all that kind of thing. And that's worked really well. We've had weekly meetings for the past 6 to 8 weeks to make sure that we're all checking in and making sure everybody's on track with stuff. In terms of your society that's spread across the UK, I think just follow some of the advice we've said already about different activities and events, so for your wider society and your members. I think that's all we're going to have time for today, unfortunately. If anybody's got any further questions, you can email us at info@organised.fun, but we'll also be emailing the recording for this next week. So hopefully that's been helpful. It's been really nice to see you all, and encourage as many of you as possible to come and see how virtual mind reading works. How exciting.
Thanks, guys.
Nice to see you all, and thanks so much for attending the festival. Super appreciated, and hope you've enjoyed it.